like the Hebrew pronunciation would be Masorite or Masoretic, but I mean, it's probably still gonna mess up. Let's see here. I wonder when I say Septuagint how they spell it on the closed captions. Um, let's see here. So let me do. We're live. We're back live. Thank you, Facebook Live. Thank you, everyone that's been tuning in for our studies today. We are going to be doing Ezekiel 23 to 24 right now with Sister Marissa. So let me get the scriptures up just in case she needs them, and also for the viewers and listeners here. All right, so let me see here. And okay, so chapter 23 of Ezekiel. Whenever you're ready, Sister Marissa.
Okay, so I'm going to read from the Hallelujah Scriptures version.
Okay.
Okay, and it says, chapter 23, and the word of Yahuwah came to me, saying, Son of man, there were two women, daughters of one mother, and they whored in Mizraim. They whored in their youth. There their breasts were scandaled, and there their maiden nipples were squeezed. And their names were Ohola, the elder, and Oholiba, her sister, and they were mine, and they bore sons and daughters. And their names, Shomeron is Ohola, and Jerusalem is Oholiba. And Ohola whored while she was mine, and she lusted for her lovers, the neighboring Ashushureans, dressed in purple, officers and rulers, all of them desirable young men, horsemen, riding on horses. So she gave her whoring on them, all of them choice sons of Asher, and with all of whom she lusted, with all their idols she defiled herself. And she did not forsake her whorings from Mizraim, for in her youth they had lain with her, and they squeezed her maiden nipples and poured out their whorings on her. Therefore I have given her into the hands of her lovers, into the hand of the Ashurians for whom she lusted. They uncovered her nakedness, they took away her sons and daughters, and slew her with the sword. And she became a byword among women, and they executed judgments on her. And her sister Oholiba saw this, yet she became more corrupt in her lust than she, and in her whorings more corrupt than her sister's whorings. She lusted for the sons of Ashur, officers and rulers, the ones near, perfectly dressed, horsemen riding on horses, all of them desirable young men. And I saw that she was defiled. They both looked the same way. But she increased her whorings, and she looked at men carved on the wall, images of Hazadites portrayed in red, girded with belts around their loins, flowing turbans on their heads, all of them looking like officers, like the Babylonians of Kasdim, the land of their birth. As soon as her eyes saw them, she lusted for them and sent messengers to them in Kasdim. And the Babylonians came to her into the bed of love, and they defiled her with their horns. And she was defiled by them, and her being turned from them in disgust. And she uncovered her horns and uncovered her nakedness. Then I turned my being from her in disgust, as my being had turned from her sister in disgust. And she increased her whorings, remembering the days of her youth, when she poured in the land of Mizraim. And she lusted after her lovers, whose flesh is like the flesh of donkeys, and whose emissions is like the emission of horses. Thus you longed for the wickedness of your youth, when the Mizrites squeezed your nipples because of the breast of your youth. Therefore, Oholiba, thus said the Master Yahuwah, see, I am stirring up your lovers against you, from whom you being turned in disgust. and shall bring them against you from every side. The Babylonians and all the Kasdites, Pekod and Shoa and Koa, all the sons of Ashur with them, all of them desirable young men, governors and rulers, officers and men of name, all of them riding on horses. And they shall come against you with battle axe, chariots, and wheels, and with an assembly of peoples. They shall put against your armor, they shall put against you armor and shield and helmet all around. And I shall commit the judgment to them, and they shall judge you according to their rulings. And I shall turn my jealousy against you, and they shall deal heatedly with you. They shall cut off your nose and your ears, while the rest of you fall by the sword. Your sons and your daughters they shall take away, while the rest of you shall be consumed by fire. And they shall strip you of your garments, and shall take your pretty jewels. And I shall put an end to your wickedness and to your whorings from the land of Mizraim, so that you do not lift your eyes to them, neither remember Mizraim anymore. For thus said the Master Yahuwah, see, I am giving you into the hand of those whom you hate, into the hand of those from whom you being turned in disgust. And they shall deal with you in hatred, and they shall take away all you have worked for, and they shall leave you naked and bare. And the nakedness of your horns shall be uncovered, and the wickedness of your horns. I do this to you because of your whoring after the Gentiles, because you have been defiled by their idols. You have walked in the way of your sister, and I shall give her cup into your hand. Thus said the Master Yahuwah, drink of your sister's cup, the deep and wide one, you being laughed at and mocked at, for it holds much. Be lifted with drunkenness and sorrow, the cup of astonishment and ruin, the cup of your sister Shumaron. And you shall drink it, and shall drain it, and gnaw its shards, and tear at your own breast. For I have spoken, declares the Master Yahuwah. Therefore, thus said the Master Yahuwah, because you have forgotten me and cast me behind your back, therefore you shall bear your wickedness and your horns. And Yahuwah said to me, Son of man, judge Oholah and Oholibah, and declare to them their abominations. For they have committed adultery, and blood is on their hands. And they have committed adultery with their idols, and even offer their sons, whom they bore to me, passing them through the fire to devour. They also did this to me. They have defiled my mikdash on the same day, and they have profaned my Shabbatot. For when they had slain their children for their idols, on the same day they came into my mikdash to profane it. And see, that is what they did in the midst of my house. And they even sent for men to come from afar, to whom a messenger was sent. And see, they came, for whom you watched yourself, painted your eyes, and adorned yourself with ornaments. And you sat on a splendid couch, with a table prepared before it, on which you had put my incense and my oil. And the sound of a crowd at ease was with her, and drunkards were brought from the wilderness with men of the commonest sort. And they put bracelets on their wrists and pretty crowns on their heads. Then I said concerning the one worn out in adulteries, now let them commit her whoring, even hers. And they went into her as men go into a woman who is a whore. Thus they went into Oholah and Oholibah, the wicked woman. But let righteous men judge them with the judgment of adulteresses, and the judgment of women who shed blood, for they are adulteresses, and blood is on their hands. For thus says the Master Yahuwah, bring up an assembly against them, give them up to maltreatment and plunder. And the assembly shall stone them with stones, and cut them with their swords. They shall slay their sons and their daughters, and burn their houses with fire. And I shall put an end to wickedness in the land, and all the women shall be instructed not to commit wickedness as you have done. And they shall put your wickedness on you, and you shall bear the sins of your idols. and you shall know that I am the Master Yahuwah. Chapter 24. And in the ninth year, in the 10th month, on the 10th of the month, the word of Yahuwah came to me, saying, Son of man, write down the name of the day, for on it, for on this same day the sovereign of Babel has thrown himself against Jerusalem. And speak a parable to the rebellious house, and you shall say to them, Thus said the Master Yahuwah, put on a pot, put it on, and also pour water on it. Gather pieces of meat in it, every good piece, the thigh and the shoulder. Fill it with choice bones. Take the choice of the flock. Hello? Who's that?
I'm sorry, hang on.
Gather pieces of meat in it, every good piece, the thigh and the shoulder. Fill it with choice bones. Take the choice of the flock. Also pile bones under it. Cook it thoroughly and let the bones cook in it. Therefore, thus says the Master Yahuwah, Woe to the city of blood, to the pot in which there is rust, and whose rust has not gone out of it. Bring it out, bring it out, piece by piece, on which no lot has fallen. For her blood is in her midst. She has put it on a shining rock. She did not pour it on the ground to cover it with dust, to stir up wrath and take vengeance. I have put her blood on a shining rock, so that it would not be covered. Therefore, thus says the Master Yahuwah, Woe to the city of blood! Let me also make the pile great. Heap on the wood, kindle the fire, cook the meat well, mix in the spices, and let the bones be burned up, and stand it on the coals, empty, so that it gets hot, and its bronze glows, and its filthiness shall be melted in it, and its rust be consumed. She has worried herself with sorrows, and her great rust has not gone from her into the fire with her rust. In your filthiness is wickedness, because I have cleansed you, but you are not clean. You shall not be cleansed of your filthiness any more, till I have caused my wrath to rest upon you. I, Yahuwah, have spoken. It shall come, and I shall do it. I do not hold back, nor do I pardon, nor do I relent. According to your ways and according to your deeds, they shall judge you, declares the Master Yahuwah. And the word of Yahuwah came to me, saying, Son of man, see, I am taking away from you the desire of your eyes with one stroke. But do not mourn, nor weep, nor let your tears run down. Groan silently, make no mourning for the dead. Bind your turban on your head and put your sandals on your feet. Do not cover your upper lip, and do not eat man's bread of sorrow. And I spoke to the people in the morning, and in the evening my wife died. And the next morning I did as I was commanded. And the people said to me, Would you explain to us what these matters you are doing mean to us? And I said to them, The word of Yahuwah came to me, saying, Speak to the house of Israel. Thus says the Master Yahuwah, See, I am profaning my mishdash, the pride of your strength, the desire of your eyes, and the delight of your being. And your sons and your daughters whom you left behind shall fall by the sword. And you shall do as I have done. Do not cover your upper lip, nor eat man's bread of sorrow. And let your turbans remain on your heads, and your sandals on your feet. Do not mourn nor weep, but you shall pine away in your wickedness, and groan with one another. And Hezekiah shall be a sign to you. Do according to all that he has done. When this comes, you shall know the Master Yahuwah, and you, son of man, they will take from them the stronghold, the joy of their adorning, the desire of their eyes, and the lifting of their feet. their sons and their daughters on that day. The one that has escaped shall come to you to let you hear it with your ears. On that day, your mouth shall be open to him who has escaped, and you shall speak and no longer be silent. And you shall be a sign to them, and they shall know that I am Yahuwah. Oh my God, this chapter is so like it just got to me because of so much evil that they did. I mean, the word whoring was just over and over and over spoken against the people of Israel because of all the abominations that they were doing. And I mean, I don't know who these women were, but they represented maybe the two houses of Israel. I don't know, but it's just so sad as I'm reading this. It just shows how much evil, because the father was obviously very upset that these people were doing all these things. And he was telling them that their whorings was just so disgusting and so appalling that he was just wanting them to know how disgusted he was with them. And it just touched me because it just showed how evil we can be at times. It's just really sad. It's just really sad that the people in this chapter was just so like they had no conscience at all. And these two women also, to me, depicted the children of Israel, of all the things that they did, that as they were putting their children to the fire, and all these things that they were doing was just breaking the father's heart. And here he's telling them constantly that they're whores, and that they're just continue to whore over and over and over again. It's just sad. It's just sad.
Yep, sis, I agree, and I think that's what he was doing with the whoring. He was a lot of times he calls whoring. He likens the physical act of sexual immorality to what they were doing with other gods.
Yes.
So sometimes when it says you're whorings, it's not actually talking about sleeping with someone. It's actually talking about them bowing down to idols,
Worse.
them putting a gift under every green tree. Um, the whorings that he's talking about is more or less worship, because to him they were his bride spiritually.
That's right.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly.
they made a covenant with him at Mount Sinai. They were supposed to be his bride, and then they go off and serve the Baals, the Ashtaroths. They commit whoring with them. The majority of the time, it was Baal and Ashtaroth. The majority of the time, and other gods that pretty much are the same people, like Molech, Milcom, uh, Remphan. All these idols that they kept going after pretty much represented these two people that were led Yahuwah's creation astray way back at the Tower of Babel. And so he constantly had to deal with them whoring after these two main false gods. And yeah, yeah. And one of the examples of their whoring I've noticed when looking at Ezekiel 24 is how many times they added Adonai in here. Um, right here they got Lord Yahuwah. So the Lord before Yahuwah is the Adonai there. Um, and then let's see, in verse 6, they added it in there. The Masorites added it in there. Um, Lord before Yahuwah. And a better way to show this is, yep, go ahead, sis.
What does it mean about the blood on the shining rock? I didn't get.
Oh, blood upon the shining rock. I think he's talking about actually physically dashing them. Like literally, his wrath is going to be poured out to them where there's going to be blood actually spilled upon the rock. And yeah, that, let me see here where that verse was. It talks about there will be blood. Mom, was that chapter 23?
Chapter 24, verse 8.
Yeah, let's see here. That my wrath should come up for complete vengeance to be taken. I
Sorry,
set her
verse 7.
blood.
Verse 7. Verse 7.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Okay. For her blood is in the midst of her. I have set it upon a smooth rock. I have not poured it out upon the earth so that the earth should cover it. Meaning, he's not going to allow the earth to receive Israel's blood. He's not going to allow the blood to be, because basically when the righteous blood would be spilled, like the blood of Abel went into the earth. So Yahuwah is actually dissing her right now. He's saying, nah, you're not going to have your blood being received by the earth. That ain't going to happen. It's going to be spilled on a smooth rock, and it's just going to stay on that rock. It's just going to be stained on the rock.
Right.
So that's what he means there in verse 7. Then he continues in verse 8 with the same thing. He says, my wrath should come up for complete vengeance to be taken. I set her blood upon a smooth rock so as not to cover it. Yeah, so he's extremely angry at Israel at this point. He's extremely pissed off. He's like to the point where his vengeance is about to be executed, and this around this time period, according to the Son of Man Bible, which is a restored name translation of the literal standard, the translator put in verse 1 of this chapter 590 BC. So this would make sense in context. This is at the time that Ezekiel is being written, this is around like the same time that they're going into Judean captivity. So this is like, or they're already probably in captivity with Daniel's captivity at this point, about 10, 20 years in. So this is why he's so mad, because at this point, this is pretty much the end of their first marriage, you could say. They're pretty much, he's already divorced their sister, the northern house. So this is mainly aimed at this rebuking by him is mainly being aimed at the house of Judah, the Benjamites, the tribe of Judah, some of the Levites that would have been part of the southern house. And he's mainly attacking them because he already dealt with the northern house. He dealt with the 10 northern tribes already. They're divorced already at this point.
And that's what I understood it to be, the two houses of Israel. But also thinking about it, how today we have the killing of babies and, the shedding of blood and the same kind of sacrifice to Molech. This could also apply to today because of all the evil that is taking place right now, in our time frame. I mean, all these things that this chapter is talking about is something that is taking place right now. I mean, we are bashing babies, we are killing and murdering babies, and their blood is being spilled, constantly. And that could also be, a form of whoring.
Yeah. And what's interesting is the valley that they would kill the babies at, Ben Hinnom, in the Hebrew, is pretty much the origin of where we get the word Gehenna from in the Greek. So it's very poetic that Yahuwah calls the lake of fire Gehenna. It's kind of like he's like, you know what? You wanted to sacrifice your children in the valleys of Ben Hinnom, all these elitists that want to, get the adrenochrome from these babies. Well, he's going to throw them into a place called Gehenna. And according to what I've researched etymologically, Gehenna comes from the Hebrew Ben Hinnom, or so it's actually Yahuwah. It's kind of like Yahuwah's taking his vengeance out of those that did such things to children, and he's throwing them. He's taking vengeance on people that do such things. When Judgment Day comes. Go ahead, Brother Joshua.
You said it was Ben Hanem etymologically. What does that mean, Ben Hanem?
Valley, the Valley of Ben Hinnom would be Ben, son, Hinnom, the son of Hinnom. Hinnom, I guess, was a valley where sacrificed babies to Molech, and it was a valley where there was like technically like a volcano, I think. And they would actually, you know, they would kill the babies, pass them through the fire. Let me see if I can pull this up. Historically, it's a valley in Israel. Let's see here, Valley of Ben Hinnom.
So, Doug, will they throw the children inside the volcano?
Yeah, if I'm not mistaken, yeah, there they would. Let's see here. Here we go. BibleGateway.com. Gehinnom. Yeah, very similar to Gehenna. Valley of Hinnom, also known as the Valley of the Son of Hinnom. Joshua chapter 15, verse 8, Jeremiah 7:32. The Valley of the Children of Hinnom. And the meaning of Hinnom and the children of Hinnom would suggest that is a proper name, perhaps, of the original Jebusite owner. The location of Valley Hinnom is uncertain because the ambiguity of biblical data concerning it ran along the boundary of Judah and Benjamin. Then they give you the cross references here, Joshua 15:8, Joshua 18:16, and was at the entry of the potsherd gate, Jeremiah 19, verse 2, not at the entrance of the eastern gate. The valley had an evil reputation in later Old Testament times because it was the site of Tophet, the idol Tophet, where parents made their children pass through the fire to, oh, what do you know? Baal and Molech. I'm so shocked. Of course it's him. Ahaz and King Ahaz and Manasseh were guilty of this horrible abomination. Isaiah refers to it, although not by name, as a place where the dead bodies of unbelieving shall lie and where their worm shall not die. So the author of this article on Bible Gateway is bringing the same connection that I brought, that Gehenna is etymologically comes from the Valley of Hinnom, and Gehenna, Greek for Gehenna, is the word for the lake of fire. So basically, Yahuwah named it after that valley that they would do that to the children. He named the lake of fire after that as a way poetically to say those that would pass children through the fire are going to be thrown into Gehenna. So it's kind of like a interesting poetic way of Yahuwah taking vengeance out on these wicked people. He's going to throw them at Judgment Day into the lake of fire, which has a similar etymologic name to the Valley of Hinnom. So Gehenna is like the Greek version of it. Gebenhenim or Gehennim is the Hebrew of the lake of fire. That's the actual Hebrew name of it. So anyway, so I just found this interesting because the Valley of Hinnom is where they would pass children through the fire to Molech. According to history or tradition, they would literally physically pass children through the fire. So possibly there might have been lava there even. They're literally passing children through the fire. I forget the whole legend behind it of the Valley of Hinnom, but it's mentioned in the Old Testament constantly where they're passing children through the fire. So anyway, so yeah, just to explain what that is. Yeah, so it's like how it's kind of like contrasting Yahuwah's vengeance there, and on the day of judgment, he'll be throwing them in Gehenna. And kind of like how Pharaoh wanted to kill all the firstborn boys or whatever, and Yahuwah's like, since you wanted to kill the firstborn of the Hebrews, I'm going to kill your firstborn. It's kind of like that same concept, vengeance is Yahuwah's. So anyway, I found some interesting connections here in Ezekiel. The 590 BC to me is pretty important historic marker there. If that's the case, that chapter 24 of Ezekiel would have been at 590 BC. Gives us a decent idea when Ezekiel is taking place. Let's see what else. Do I have any other notes here? Verse 14 I thought was interesting of chapter 24. Let's go back to that. I, who have spoken it, and it shall come, I will do it, I will not delay, neither will I have any mercy. I will judge you, says Yahuwah, according to your ways and according to your devices. Therefore I will judge you, according to your bloodshed. And according to your devices will I judge you, you unclean, notorious, and abundantly provoking one. It's kind of funny. It's kind of funny going back to my days of listening to rap music. You had a rapper called the Notorious B.I.G.
Yeah.
You know, I kind of wonder how Yahuwah thinks about the word notorious. So that's kind of interesting to me. We like adopt these stupid terminologies like notorious. There was a wrestling group calling themselves degenerates. It's like, I guess they never read the Bible, because Yahuwah called Israel when they were in apostasy a degenerate plant, you know, like a degenerate branch. So
the rapper Ludacris.
yeah, ludicrous, calling yourself crazy or ludicrous. Like, it's like, I don't know, it's either we are extremely ignorant, us that grew up in the 90s, or something happened.
Or it's their mindset, Doug. It's their mindset. It's where they're at. They're not,
Yeah.
you know, on any, you know, that's just their mindset of corruption that they believe in.
Yeah.
Says
it's
that the
crazy.
Father has given him over to a reprobate mind.
Yeah, like Romans 1 says, he will turn them over to their own retribution. And he does. We see that all the time.
Yeah. I remember talking to a Christian a while ago about this concept of Yahuwah's mercy and all that. They were always saying, oh, there's only mercy now, there's no more judgment. What? Well, Ezekiel 24:14 here is saying he's not going to have any mercy for those that do such things as these things are being mentioned in this chapter. So there's still judgment. He's not, you know, a lot of people like to look at Paul's letters where it talks about we're not given, we're not appointed to wrath. And, you know, where they like to take these one-liners without the context. And, you know, where Paul says in Romans 8, where those that are in Messiah are not going to be condemned, but it actually says those that are in Messiah who do not walk according to the flesh will not be condemned. So just because you claim to be in Messiah doesn't mean you're really in him.
Christianity teaches that we are not, there's no judgment coming until when we go before the white throne. They say judgment doesn't come until you get judged by him at the white throne. It's like people really believe that, like you said, mercy and then judgment is going to come after. But we see judgment taking place in all aspects of people's lives. So I don't know how Christianity can teach people that judgment only comes after we go before the white throne.
Yeah, the white throne judgment is separate from all other judgments. The white throne, I think they misunderstand that concept. The white throne is the final judgment. That's it. That's it. Whoever's not in the book of life at the white throne judgment, that's condemnation right there. So what they need, I think they're first of all, I don't think anyone's really taught. I know I wasn't taught the difference between condemnation and judgment. That's the problem. They're two different concepts. Condemnation means you're literally verdicted to be condemned to the lake of fire. So people don't understand that the type of judgment at the white throne judgment is pretty much either you're in Messiah and he's taken your guilt and he's blotted out your debts to the Torah, like Colossians 2:14 of the Aramaic New Testament says, he took the bill of our debts and nailed it to a stake. Or you don't accept him, you're not in him, and you're automatically condemned to the lake of fire, and there is no second chance. So really, the great white throne judgment is a that's like the climax judgment. That's the very last judgment. And then after that, you have the new heaven, new earth. So really after that, it's pretty much, that's the last event that's going to happen on this present earth we have today. And so I think what people misunderstand is that there's no judgment from now until then. No, there's plenty of judgment. Shoot, the day of his wrath is judgment on,
Hey, brother.
on a wicked earth.
Yeah, brother, doesn't it say too that they're gonna die, but the evil will burn in hell, but people who don't make it in are only gonna be no more, right? Is that true?
Well, yeah, the verse actually says that the smoke of the torment goes up forever. That's the smoke, not their torment. So yeah, that's a good point you bring up. And a lot of people misunderstand this because of Catholic theology that goes all the way back to the Greek religion theology, Greek mythology. This idea of eternal damnation. It's not eternal damnation as in you're gonna be tortured forever and ever for eternity. You go into the lake of fire, which is also called in Revelation the second death. So you die. You're not constantly alive being re-tormented. That eternal torment, Catholicism took that from Greek mythology, because Greek mythology actually they combine the idea of Gehenna and hell as the same place, which it's not. They're two different places. Hell, Sheol, hell is the Greek word for the Hebrew Sheol. That's just the grave. It's not a place of torment. It's not a place of condemnation. It's where everyone goes where they have their first death. The first death literally means that's when your physical human life is over and you go to the grave. The second death is the lake of fire. That's why Revelations talks about Baruch are those in the first resurrection, because everyone who's in the first resurrection are going to be in the kingdom. In the second resurrection, you have some that go to the lake of fire that are condemned, and some that are going to the kingdom. That's why, and I believe that's what Daniel chapter 12 is talking about when it says some are resurrected to everlasting life, some to everlasting shame.
Yeah.
So not, basically the second resurrection, you got two groups in the second resurrection. You got the rest of the body of Messiah who was least in the kingdom. They'll still make it in. And then you got another group in that second resurrection, the majority of the world being condemned, being not written in the book of life, which would include those that reject Yahushua, don't believe he's the Messiah, even our brothers and sisters that Yahuwah forbid have fallen away, non-New Testament, Old Testament only people that have rejected their gift of salvation. Anyone who has not accepted
Like
Messiah,
Paul, right, brother? Like
automatically has chosen condemnation for themselves, according to 1 John. It says that if he who rejects the Messiah has condemned himself. So basically, if you don't accept him as Messiah, if you're preached to, the Besor's preached to you before, before Judgment Day or before the tribulation, you decide, oh, I don't want him, I want to keep being a heathen. Well, then you made your choice. You condemned yourself. And I know it's a harsh thing to say, but that's what the scriptures show. That's what the truth is. That's what the scriptures show. You got one chance. You got one chance to accept the Creator's loving gift of salvation. You don't accept it, well, you made your choice.
And we have had more than enough time to make this decision. More than enough time.
So, and you can find that concept not just in the canon, but 4th Ezra's even shows where Ezra feels bad for, it seems like he's feeling bad for the Israelites that will not make it into the kingdom, or some of his even physical brothers that for some reason is not making it into the kingdom. And he's like, Father, is there a second chance in the resurrection? Is there this? Is there that? And basically Yahuwah says to him, he's like, nah, we can't atone. You can't atone for them. You can't intercede for them in the judgment. It's it. That's it. It's a done deal.
Yeah.
So even apocryphal books that were originally in the King James, like 4th Ezra's, 2nd Ezra's, tell you flat out there's one chance when you're living. Once you die and go to physical death, like the normal, the grave, your fate has been sealed, whether you're in the book of life or not. Yahuwah already has it written down. Who, you know, by the time you die, he'll have it written down, recorded, whether you're in the book of life or not. And there's no interceding after the end of time, after the tribulation, after the day of Yahuwah, and you're at the white throne judgment. That's it. Your judgment's sealed already. So that's why I've always been a firm belief of you get one chance while you're on this earth in your mortal human life.
Yeah.
To accept the Messiah, and that's it. And that's it. And there's going to be people that do accept him and people that don't. People that have been predestined to accept him and people that just, for some reason, Yahuwah has not opened their eyes to receive him. And for whatever reason it is, and that Paul talks about that, the predestination thing, and I think it's in Romans, he quotes from Jeremiah, the chapter about the potter and the clay. And basically Paul's trying to get through to the assembly, like one of the assemblies in Rome, like, listen, man, don't be mad at the potter. Who are you to judge the potter?
That's right.
Who are you to say why you made me this way? Who are you to say, you did something wrong? You did something wrong with making me. So, this.
Yeah, good luck, transgenders. Good luck.
Yeah, well, Yahuwah did not make them that way. And he did not.
No, he didn't.
And no one's born gay. No one's born homosexual.
Nope.
Sorry. But that's a whole nother topic. But Yahuwah made everyone the same as far as heterosexual goes. He created everyone the same. He created everyone of one race, the human race. So, but as far as that goes, that's how the death and judgment goes. The final judgment. I would say the white throne judgment is the final judgment. That is the last judgment. So there's going to be judgments between now and then. You can see it all through the prophets. Yahuwah is talking about, I'm going to judge the Philistines. They're going to be no more. I'm going to, different nations he's dealing with in the end times. And some nations are going to be utterly destroyed in the day of his wrath, the day he comes back. So there is judgment. So to say that it's all love, it's all mercy, this 1970s hippie idea of the creator, that's not his character. He, and I think that's what happens is people get pre-doctrinated. They get indoctrinated when they're a child that the father's this old meanie, all wrath. And then you got the son who's just, all nice, love, no judgment. And you're taught in Christianity, you can't judge anyone. You can't even judge your own brother. If he's doing something wrong, you don't judge anyone. And we see in scripture that's the complete opposite, that Yahushua is commanding his disciples, judge righteously, don't judge by appearance. Paul's saying, why can't you handle this on your own? Don't you know you're going to judge angels? We're going to be judging the angels that sinned in Genesis 6. We're going to be judging the fallen angels, the 1/3 that came down with Satan. Why we should be able to judge among humans, because it's going to be much more responsibility in the millennial. And it's going to be much more responsibility, in the new heaven, new earth, in the white throne judgment, you're going to, eventually us that make it into the kingdom, we're going to have to judge, other beings other than even humans, so, I mean, that concept of no judgment is just a Satan's way of just getting people into this lulling of not judging and getting people confused with judgment and condemnation. Those are two different things. Judgment we're supposed to be doing. Condemnation is actually, that's Yahuwah's job. That's Yahusha's job. The final judgment, condemnation or salvation, belongs to the Father, obviously. So, but anyway, so yeah, but just to explain, Gehenna, the lake of fire, that is the second death. And it is a death. You're not being eternally tormented. Hitler won't even be eternally tormented. He, guys like him and tyrants that are completely evil, they will be killed, and that's it. They cease to exist. They, they will be punished in the lake of fire and killed, but it won't be like a constant everlasting torment like we've been taught. But anyway, moving on. So now we got, let's see here. I think who is reading 25 to 27? Oh yeah, that's right. Brother Dennis, you're going to be reading Ezekiel 25 to 27. So if you can,
Okay.
yeah. All right. Let's see here.
Can you hear me okay?
Perfect.
All right. 25. The word of Yahuwah came to me, saying, Son of man, set your face against the Ammonites and prophesy against them. And you shall say to the Ammonites, Hear the word of the Master Yahuwah. Thus said the Master Yahuwah, because you said, Aha, against my set-apart place when it was profane, and against the land of Yisrael when it was ruined, and against the house of Yehudah when they went into exile. Therefore, see, I am giving you as a possession to the men of the east, and they shall set their encampments among you, and make their dwellings among you, and they shall eat your fruit, and they shall drink your milk. And I shall make Rabbah a pasture for camels, and Ammon a resting place for flocks, and you shall know that I am Yahuwah. For this is what the Master Yahuwah said, because you clapped your hands, and you stamped your feet, and rejoiced with all the scorn of your being against the land of Yisrael. Therefore, see, I myself shall stretch out my hand against you, and give you as plunder to the nations, and I shall cut you off from the peoples, and make you perish from the lands. I shall destroy you, and you shall know that I am Yahuwah. This is what the Master Yahuwah said. Because Moab and Seir say, See, the house of Yehudah is like all the Gentiles. Therefore, see, I am opening the flank of Moab on the side of the cities, on the side of his cities, on its frontiers, the splendor of the land, Baeth Yeshemoth, Baal Meon, and Peryethaim. And I shall give it together with the Ammonites as a possession to the men of the east, so that the Ammonites are no more remembered among the nations. Also on Moab I execute judgments, and they shall know that I am Yahuwah. Thus said the Master Yahuwah, because of what Edom has done against the house of Yehudah, by taking vengeance, so that they become very guilty, and they have taken vengeance on them. Therefore, thus said the Master Yahuwah, I shall stretch out my hand against Edom, and I shall cut off man and beast from it, and lay it waste. From Teman even to Dedan, they shall fall by the sword. And I shall lay my vengeance on Edom by the hand of my people, Yisrael. And they shall do in Edom according to my displeasure and according to my wrath. So they shall know my vengeance, declares the Master Yahuwah. Thus said the Master Yahuwah, because the Philistines have acted in vengeance, and took vengeance with scorn in their being, to destroy with lasting enmity. Therefore, thus said the Master Yahuwah, see, I am stretching out my hand against the Philistines. I shall cut off the Kerethites and destroy the remnant of the seacoast, and execute great vengeance on them with raging reproofs. And they shall know that I am Yahuwah when I lay my vengeance upon them. 26. And it came to be in the 11th year, on the first month, the word of Yahuwah came to me, saying, Son of man, because Zor has spoken against Jerusalem, aha, see, the gateway of the peoples has been broken. She has been turned over to me. Let me be filled with, she has been ruined. Therefore, thus said the Master Yahuwah, see, I am against you, O Zor, and shall cause many nations to come up against you, as the sea causes its waves to come up. And they shall destroy the walls of Zor, and they shall break down her towers, and they shall scrape her dust from her, and shall make her like a shining rock. She She shall be a place for spreading nets in the midst of the sea, for I have spoken, declares Master Yahuwah, and she shall become plunder for the nations. While her daughter villages, which are in the fields, are slain by the sword, and they shall know that I am Yahuwah. For thus said the Master Yahuwah, see, I am bringing against Zor from the north Nebuchadnezzar, sovereign of Babel, the sovereign of sovereigns, with horses and with chariots, and with horsemen, even in assembly and many people. Sword, he shall slay your daughter villages in the fields, and he shall heap up a siege mound against you, and shall build a wall against you, and shall siege a large shield against you, and set the blow of his battering rams against your walls, and break down your towers with his weapons. For his many horses, their dust shall cover you. From the noise of the horsemen and vehicles and chariots, your walls shall shake as he enters your gates, as men enter a city that is breached. With the hooves of his horses, he tramples all your streets. He slays your people by the sword, and the columns of your strength shall fall to the ground. They shall plunder your riches. They shall loot your merchandise, and they shall break down your walls and destroy your pleasant houses. They shall put your stones and your timber and your dust in the midst of the water. And I shall cause the sound of your songs to cease, and let the sound of your lyres be heard no more. And I shall make you like a shining rock, and let you be a place for spreading nets, never to be rebuilt. For I, Yahuwah, have spoken, declares the Master Yahuwah. Thus said the Master Yahuwah to Zor, when the coastlands not shake at the sound of your fall, when the wounded cry, when slaughter is made in your midst, and all the princes of the sea shall come down from their thrones, and they shall lay aside their robes, and take off their embroidered garments, and put on trembling, and sit on the ground, and they shall tremble continuously, and they shall be astonished at you. And they shall take up a lamentation for you, and say to you, how you have perished, O one inhabited by seafaring men, the city well praised, who was strong at sea, she and her inhabitants, who put their fear on all her inhabitants. Now the coastlands tremble on the day of your fall, and the coastlands by the sea shall shudder at your going out. For thus said the Master Yahuwah, when I make you a ruined city, like cities no longer inhabited, when I bring the deep upon you, and great waters cover you, then I shall bring you down with those who go up into the pit, go down into the pit, the people of old, and I shall make you dwell in the lowest part of the earth, in the waste of old, with those who go to the pit, so that you do not return. But I shall establish splendor in the land of the living. I'll make you a horror, and let you be no more. You are sought for, but never found again, declares the Master Yahuwah. 27. The word of Yahuwah came to me, saying, now, son of man, take up a lamentation for Zor. You shall say to Zor, you who dwell at the entrance to the sea, merchant of the peoples on many coastlands, thus said the Master Yahuwah, O Zor, you yourself have said, I am perfect in loveliness. Your borders are in the heart of the seas. Your builders have perfected your loveliness. They have made all your timbers of fir trees from Sinar. They took a cedar from Lebanon to make it a mast for you. From the oaks of Bashan, they made your oars. They made your deck with ivory from the coast of Kittim. Fine embroidered linen from Mitzrayim was your sail to serve you as manner. Blue and purple from the coast of Elisha was your covering. The inhabitants of Zion and Arwad were your seamen. Your wise men, O Zor, were in you. They were your sailors. The elders of Gabal and its wise men were in your repairing your seams. All the ships of the sea with their seamen were in you to trade your merchandise. Those from Persia, Lud, and Put were in your army as men of battle. Shield and helmet they hung up within you. They gave splendor to you. The sons of Arwad and your army were on your walls all around, and the Gammadites were on your towers. They hung their shields on your walls all around. They perfected your loveliness. Tarshish was your merchant because of your great wealth. They gave you silver, iron, tin, and lead for your merchandise. Yawan, Tubal, and Meshach were your traders. They exchanged slaves and objects of bronze for your merchandise. Those from the house of Tagarma exchanged horses and horsemen and mules for your merchandise. The men of Dedan traded with you. Many isles were your market. They brought you ivory tusk and ebony as payment. Ram was your merchant because of the multitude of your works. They gave you emeralds, purple, and embroidery, and fine linen and corals and rubies were your wares. Yehuda and the land of Yisrael were your traders. Your merchandise they exchanged wheat of Minnith and early figs and honey and oil and balm. Damascus was your merchant because of the multitude of your works, because of your great wealth of goods, tobes, with the wine of Hebron and with white wool. Widon and Yawan from Uzal paid for your wares. They exchanged wrought iron, cassia, and cane for your merchandise. Dedan traded with you in saddlecloths for riding. Arabia and all princes of Gadar were merchants for you in lambs and rams and goats. They were your merchants. The traders of Sheba and Ramah were your traders. They paid for your wares with the choicest spices and all kinds of precious stones and gold. Ran and Kenneth and Edan, traders of Sheba, Ashur, and Kilmad, traded with you. They traded with you in perfect items, in purple clothes, in embroidered garments, in chests of multicolored clothes, in strong twine cords among your merchandise. The ships of Tarshish were the travelers of your merchandise, and you were filled with richly laden in the heart of the seas. Seamen brought you into many waters, but the east wind broke you in the heart of the seas. Your wealth and your wares, your merchandise, your mariners and your sailors, the repairers of seams and your dealers in merchandise, and all your fighting men who are in you, and the entire company which is in your midst, shall go down into the heart of the seas on the day of your fall. Coast shaking at the sound of the cry of your sailors. And all the oarsmen, the mariners, all the sailors of the sea shall come down from their ships. They shall stand on the shore, and they shall raise their voice and cry bitterly over you, and cast dust on their heads, rolling themselves in ashes. And they shall shave themselves bald because of you, and shall gird themselves with sackcloth, and they shall weep for you with bitterness of heart and bitter wailing. And in their wailing for you, they shall take up a lamentation, and they shall lament for you, who is cut off in the midst of the sea like Zor. When your waves went out by sea, you have filled many peoples with your great wealth and your merchandise. You have made the sovereigns of the earth rich. From the time you are broken by the seas and the depths of the waters, your merchandise and all your company shall fall in your midst. All the inhabitants of the isles shall be astonished at you, and their sovereigns shall be greatly afraid. Their faces shall be troubled. The merchants among the people shall whistle at you. You shall become a horror and be no more forever.
All right. So we had an interesting couple of chapters here. Let me see here. So let's see here. 26. Keep the passing here.
Forever is a long time.
Yeah. Sword. So Tyre. Yeah. What's interesting, I find it interesting that the Septuagint has more Hebrew in it than some of these modern Bibles here. In chapter 26, verse 3, it actually kept the transliteration of sore instead of transliterating it as Tyre. I find that interesting.
Oh,
So they actually kept the Paleo Hebrew transliteration there into the right into the Greek. But so the sore is actually Tyre for anyone that doesn't know, that's not familiar with that Hebrew version of the name of that nation. So Tyre. Tyre was famous for being right near Phoenicia too. They were neighbors to Phoenicia. Supposedly, even the whole Phoenix mythology from Phoenicia and Tyre. The whole idea of the phoenix bird and all that. So they were very. Tyre was actually at one point tied to Satan. Satan was like the main principality over that specific nation at one point in time. If you go to Ezekiel 28, which we haven't got there yet, that's the story of Satan's fall. And, so people have theorized the king of Tyre was directly controlled by Satan at that point. And that's why Yahuwah's rebuking Satan. He's talking about put up a lamentation for the king of Tyre, 3 chapters, or 2 chapters. Actually, no, we stopped at what, chapter 27? So pretty much next week we'll be getting to that chapter, chapter 28 of Ezekiel. So, yeah, so that's probably one of the main reasons Yahuwah is pronouncing judgment on Tyre in chapter 26. And so...
Make them a flat tire.
Yeah, giving them a flat tire. He'll give them more than that. So I don't know who would have been like Sidon or Sor, who would be any Sidonians today. I have no idea. Brother Joshua did put up a good question about the legend. The legend goes is that Edom became Rome. This is like the legend. I don't know how true that is. All I know is that the ancient Judeans, even going up to like 1st to 3rd century AD, they still believe that in many of their literature. Even in the Targum version of the Torah that supposedly mentions a supposable prophecy given to Abraham way back when he's giving that prophecy, when he passes out and he's making the covenant with Yahuwah. The divided parts, I think we're pretty familiar with that chapter in Genesis 15 with the divided parts, the divided bird that he offers to Yahuwah as a sacrifice. And it mentions unclean birds tried to attack him and tried to stop the sacrifice. So if we go to Genesis 15, I'll show you 2 different Targums that agree that it seems like Rome became Edom here. In Genesis 15:12, in the Targum, the sun goes asleep profound and sweet fell upon Abram. Behold, Abram saw 4 kingdoms which should arise. So it's almost like Abram, Yahuwah showed this vision to Abraham, but even before Daniel, according to those that would have written the Targums, that this vision was given to Abraham before Daniel. His sons will be given into subjection. Terror, which is the greatness of darkness, fell upon him. Terror, that is Babylon. Darkness, that is Media. Greatness, that is Greece, which fell. That is Edom. And the translator, Tove Rose, put it in parentheses here for Edom, Rome. That 4th kingdom, which is to fall and never to rise again forever and ever. It would make sense because that's, we see that today, evidence of that, the Vatican. If the Vatican is a pretty much the Edomites, if they run the Vatican, they run Italy today, that would make a lot of sense prophetically. And there's some, modern day proof of that, with Rome being one of the most powerful nations out, places out there. Rome actually pretty much controls the world at this point. And the fact that Catholicism is like I think one of the most populated religions in the world today. Them and Islam are tied, so it's very possible. I don't know, but it's very possible the nation of Rome, the nation of Edom, could have become what we call today Rome. They didn't even call them Rome until the story of Romulus and Remus, and I forget when that actually happened. Supposedly the name of Rome came from Romulus and Remus. Anyway, but verse 17 here talks about Gehenna, which we were talking about earlier. Interesting. It talks about Abraham beheld till the seats were arrayed and thrones were set forth, and lo, Gehenna. So it even mentions a prophecy about the judgment of the righteous and the wicked, which is kind of interesting. So it seems like Daniel was given a similar vision. Yeah. So pretty much it's kind of interesting to me that if that's true, then we see why Yahuwah hates Edom so much. And I think when even in Obadiah chapter 1, when it's talking about the judgment of Edom, I think it's more or less talking about the judgment of the 10 kings and all that, and the 10 kings of Revelation and all that, and the actual Edomites will probably be running the one world religion and all that. They'll probably be the beast kingdom. So I think prophetically that's why he's talking about, he's gonna destroy all of Edom, because we see in scripture that some Edomites are allowed to be grafted in. It's not like if you're a descendant of Esau that you're done for and you could never accept Messiah, because we see Job was an Edomite. And if Edom became Rome, then we have to accept that Cornelius in the New Testament, he's a ethnic Edomite. So to not have a contradiction in scripture, I think Obadiah 1 in context is actually talking about the judgment of these Edomite kings in Revelation and the actual beast kingdom that verily might be Edom, Rome.
Is that the same as the Jesuits, you think?
Yeah. Like if Edom became Italy or Rome, then yeah, you would have the Jesuit order being part of Edom. You would have Pope Francis, who I believe will be revealed as the false prophet. I believe he is, most likely he's an Edomite. So go ahead, brother Joshua.
He's pretty old, so we don't. If he is who we think he is, then we don't have that much longer left.
Yeah. The reason I believe this mainly is due to the scripture talking about that 10th king is a king that he is basically the last king, and he is supposed to come after one before him continues a short time, which if you did some research about the Pope before Francis, he was only there for a short time. Benedict, he was pretty much, he was done after a short term. And then right after he resigned that night, you had Pope Francis. Lightning struck the Vatican, and then Pope Francis came in. So I believe Pope Francis, it's possible, I could be wrong, but I believe it's possible that he could be the false prophet. I feel like he's a good candidate. Out of the possible candidates that could be the false prophet for the beast, I believe he's the one that's been really, really, really promoting this one world ecumenical religion for the Catholic Church. And yeah, I understand, and it's a good point that he's old, so it would have to happen soon. But I do believe, yeah. So So I don't know. It's a very tricky thing with the false prophet, because the false prophet, could really be anyone. I know some people want to put Obama up there. I don't know. I don't think Obama's smart enough. I don't know. I don't see him being used as a false prophet, um, but so I don't know. It could be. It seems too like Pope Francis is going to be the last pope. I think that's another reason I believe he's the false prophet. There was a weird prophecy about a former Jesuit priest that supposedly was given a prophecy about that, and that he wrote in a book that he basically described the last pope, that and in so many words kind of described Pope Francis when Francis was first chosen as Pope Benedict's replacement. And I think Tom Horn and Chris Putnam wrote the book. I think it's called what was it? Maybe Brother Dennis, you could help me out. Exo Vaticana, was it?
Yeah, I think it was.
Yeah, so I would just encourage people to look into that, because it's pretty interesting. This Catholic prophecy that practically has been fulfilled to the T by Pope Francis. I don't know, for whatever it's worth, he might be, the antithesis of John the Baptist, that we're looking for in the false prophet for the end time. So anyway, but going back to Edom being Rome, I believe that it's very possible Edom became Rome, that they just hidden under the name Rome. It's very possible that, and I think they're even hinted at in fourth Ezra's in the King James Apocrypha. They're even mentioned as the double-headed eagle, which is mentioned in fourth Ezra's. There's a prophecy that talks about that, which is kind of funny because they're referenced as an eagle in Obadiah 1 also. So just saying. As you rise up as an eagle and set your nest among the stars, I will bring you down, which is kind of funny. If you look at one of the Apollo missions, it's actually it's actually to the T describing what Yahuwah's referencing to. Let me see if I can pull that up. I used to have it on my Facebook account. I tagged a couple of former brothers in this walk on it. I think a former brother and a former sister, actually. So let me see here if I can just pull that up real quick. But anyway, wow. Okay, so this is taking forever for no reason. Maybe I have too many tabs up. Okay. Let me go to my account. Just show you guys the picture I'm talking about here. Then we'll move on to the New Testament portion so we can finish for today. All right. So I just want to show you guys something interesting I came across. Let's see, your photos. Okay. It's going to take this long. Never mind. All right. Actually, I should be able to still find this on Google Images. This should still be up there. The eagle having its nest among the stars on the moon. Let's see. Apollo. I think it's 11. Let's see, eagle. Come on. There we go. And I just find it interesting. You got the eagle on its nest on the moon. So I just find that interesting for whatever it's worth. Yep, I agree, Brother Joshua. So we're going to move on to the New Testament portion here. All right, so I'm going to end this live here and start a new one right away for the New Testament.